Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Tristan. I'm so happy to welcome you guys to the Novus podcast. This is a podcast that's going to change your life. I need you guys to watch all the way to the end, but first, hit that subscribe button, share this with a friend, like and comment. Let's get into this. What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 24 of the Novus Church podcast, guys. I'm so excited about this episode. I have Grace Rutland, my student mentor in BSSM, also my friend that I've gotten to know over the summer, and I just met her in person. Amazing. She just had a baby, fantastic person. She's really helped me grow in my spiritual journey and really recognize that what a true friend looks like. I see it all over Grace. So I'm just excited. I want to go ahead and introduce her to you guys because she's got a word for you that I felt the Lord just said, ask Grace to come on the podcast. I was like, okay, God. So Grace, welcome.
Hi. So as Tristan said, I'm Grace. I live in Redding, California. I'm originally from Wisconsin, so I'm a Midwest girl at heart. My husband's from Michigan, so we're both very Midwest. And as he said, I did recently have a baby, October 5th. His name is Benaiah, and he's adorable. He is definitely, I fully understand why people say being a mom is a full-time job, because it definitely is.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of time and attention and focus. But basically, when Tristan asked me if I would want to be on the podcast, I was like, it sounds really cool, but I don't know. And I just had to really think through it. And also, like, when he asked, I was in a spot of being super overwhelmed by everything of being a mom.
Yeah.
So basically, everything that I'm going to share is just things that I've been learning as I'm a mom now, and things that I've been almost parables, basically, of just things that the Lord's been teaching me through being a mom. So it's lessons from a new mom. That's me. One of the things that I feel like I noticed initially, I know I already told you, Tristan, about this story, but just like it's so easy to like talk about the concept of God as our father, but then we like substitute that view with how we think he thinks. And so there's this phrase that you are who you think people think you are, and it's not actually how they actually see you. It's just how we think that they think we are. And I think we apply that to the Lord as well, in that we respond to the Lord how we think he thinks, but it's not always actually how he thinks. I talk with my hands a lot, by the way. So and with that, I've just been basically with Benaiah, he will be nursing and he'll take in a whole bunch of air and the stomach will get really upset, and so he'll try to keep gulping down more milk thinking that it'll make his stomach better, or he'll just start screaming and he won't want to like sit or be anywhere that he should be in order to burp, and he just fights it so much. And I was like, I'm watching him and I'm like, this isn't what you need. I know what you need and I'm trying to give it to you and I'm trying to help you get there, but you think that you need something else. And just the parallel of how we interact with the Lord often is we often say, I know I need this, or I have this discomfort, and therefore I'm going to try to comfort myself in this way. And it ends up being this battle between us and the Lord, and we finally get what we actually needed, and the pain goes away. And then we go to the Lord and we go, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. You must be really frustrated or really mad. And the entire time the Lord's like, no, I love you. Like, I'm sad to see you in that place. I'm not mad that you're trying to do that. I understand. That's logical. And I have so much compassion for him in that spot, because I'm like, you're in pain and I want to make it better, but I can't because you're fighting me. But I'm not mad. I'm not mad at him for doing that. Like, he's just doing what he thinks will help. And I think there's so much compassion that the Lord has for us in seasons where we are struggling, in seasons where we're trying to figure out what's going on and how to fix certain things, and when things didn't go the way we planned. So that would be my first thing. Just like, there's so much compassion that the Lord has for you. And if you are able to see yourself how he actually sees you, it would change a lot of your perspective and probably put you at a lot more peace when things don't go the way they're planned. That's lesson number 1, compassion. And have compassion for yourself because you're figuring it out. There's so much compassion that's given to new moms, but then it's like, there's so many other things going on in other people's lives. Like, give yourself compassion because life is not always easy. Sometimes it can be hard. The next thing, lesson, has been about trust. Trust between the Lord, but then also just like trust as a whole. Maybe a little bit of TMI, but when you're breastfeeding, baby, you have no way of knowing how much milk they're actually getting. Like, you can't, because you can't see it. There's no level. There's no way of knowing actually how much milk they're getting, and so you don't know until time passes whether or not they're getting what they need. They can be satisfied or they can fall asleep or something, but until you have this record of time or this time period where things have gone by, you don't actually know if they're getting enough, because you don't know if they're growing. You have to look for the growth, and you have to look for what's coming out of them, which in the form of diapers. And you have to just trust that, okay, if they're having regular diapers, okay, if they are still gaining weight, like, they are getting what they need, and that's the goal. And so it's been this almost blind trust that I've had to learn and had to sit in. It's very frustrating, but it's also one of those things that can be so similar in our walk with the Lord, where we're like, okay, I read my Bible today, but I don't feel any different. I feel like I just read a piece of scripture. And or I sang one worship song, and I don't see anything happening. But then as you continue on with these habits and continue on with these things, you then get to look back and go, oh my gosh, I've grown so much. Or, wow, my language has changed and I'm talking differently. Or I'm noticing that I'm talking with the Lord more than I was before. And you just slowly see this growth happen. And you go, oh, okay, what I'm putting in must be actually enough for me, or at the very least, causing me to grow. And it's that trust with the Lord of He will help us to continue to grow. And when we put in the effort and we go and feed ourselves in the Lord, we will see that growth, even if it is minuscule at this point. And to be honest, I'm saying this as one who has not been great at reading her Bible lately, partially because I'm a new mom, and partially just because I haven't disciplined myself recently to do it. But when I compare the newborn clothes that my baby was in to the clothing that he's in now, he's 2 months old and he is nearly grown out of 3-month clothing because he's too long for it. And I'm like, he's obviously growing. He's obviously doing great. He's happy. He's smiling. He's growing. He's getting stronger. So lesson number 2, trust, even when it's blind, and just wait. Because as you wait and you continue doing what you're doing, you're going to see the growth and you're going to see the change. Lesson number 3, humility. Chris Vallison recently shared a message, and at the end of the message, he was talking about how he wanted everyone to take a moment with the Lord that week and just ask him if there were areas where you're walking in rebellion or just not listening to authority or not doing some of the things that you needed to be doing. And for anyone who knows me, I love to be my own person and I like to make my own decisions. And so when somebody says, don't do that, my initial instinct is, I'm doing it. Especially when it comes to physical challenges, or like, no, don't climb that, it's not safe, or no, don't go that way. I'm like, I'm going that way. I'm exploring. I will see what is out there. And then I also have the opposite. So if you tell me to do something and I don't really want to do it, I just don't do it. And I go, and I have all these logical reasons why I'm not doing it. I did this to my husband a ton during my pregnancy, where he would be like, hey, take your prenatals. And I'd be like, no, it makes me nauseous if I take them on an empty stomach, which is logical. But at the same time, I was also just like making excuses, because I could have eaten something or could have done something else. And I just was lazy, which is just plain. That's what it was. But we had our birth class, and they were telling us all these exercises that we should be doing. And so I came home and I'm like, Colin, can you help me remember to do these things? And he's like, yeah. But then, like, as we were talking, he ended up sharing about how he didn't actually like reminding me of anything because I wouldn't do it. So he would tell me, like, hey, do this. And then I would be like, nah, whatever. And I told him that what I wanted was to be pestered and told, hey, this is what you need to do. And like, no, do it. No, do it. And he was like, no, I can't do that. And I won't do that because I'm not your parent. I'm your husband, not your parent. And so I'm not going to treat you as if I'm your parent. And that was like huge, like, oh, shoot, that is what I was asking you to do. And that's not who I want you to be in my life. And then also, like, learning I'm actually not building trust with my husband, and I need to step into humility and say, if I'm asking you to do something, I need to honor when you do it, rather than, and step into that humility with him, rather than just sticking to my independence and my desire to do my own thing and be my own person, and ignoring the inner part of me that says, no, I don't want to, but actually going, no, actually honoring and walking in humility means more to me. So that was like, had happened before the Chris Valentin message. And then when he shared that, I was like reminded of that. And then I was like, okay. And I took a moment while nursing Benaya in the middle of the night, one of the nights, where I was just like, okay, God, are there other areas that I need to work on this? Because I'm still working on it with my husband and getting better. But I wanted to know if there were other areas, and the Lord was convicting me, because he was saying, you're asking for advice on all of these things with Benaya and asking for help because things aren't working, and yet you're not taking the advice that's been given to you already. Which also parallel with the Lord, oftentimes he will tell us to do things and then we don't do them, and then we go, wait, I'm not hearing your voice. And he's like, well, what did I just tell you to do? And so there's been a lot of me stepping into humility then, even with those things, when it's like, I think I know what is right, but actually, if I'm asking for help and advice, I need to take that help and advice rather than just going, nope, that's not right because I don't think it's right. Granted, there's lines with that, obviously, but yeah. And then the fourth one has been maintaining focus. And this one has been really hard because I am a mom and I have a newborn who needs 24/7, 7 days a week, all the time. And so, in essence, I do have to give him most of my attention. And yet, at the same time, I'm supposed to maintain locked eyes with the Lord while taking care of Benaiah. And that's been such a journey, like, it's such a hard thing to navigate, because I'm like, my priority needs to be God, my husband, my child. And yet, when my child is screaming, I need to take care of my child before I give my husband attention. And vice versa. When my child is screaming, it's very hard to have this moment with the Lord where I go, God, you're so beautiful. I love you. But at the same time, my attention diverts to Benaiah. And so I was very frustrated one night and had just put him down, and we'd had multiple nights of rough sleeping and not as great feeds and stuff. And so I've been really tired lately. And so this last week, I was just kind of laying out a lot of my frustrations to the Lord, over just how everything has gone, because a lot of things haven't gone how I expected them to. Like my labor ended up being 44 hours total. Active labor was only like 3.5 hours, but because my water broke and then labor didn't progress, I was in labor for so long. I was exhausted afterwards. I tore a little bit, didn't have to get sewn up, but still tore. And still now the tear still hasn't quite healed, which it should have already. So I might have to go get that taken care of. And then he was born with a tongue and lip tie, and so we had to get that revised. And nursing has been such a struggle, and I have an oversupply, so he gets a little milk logged, is what we call it, instead of waterlogged. And so he's been struggling to nurse without taking in a bunch of air because it just comes too quickly for him. And so just the whole journey of figuring it all out and all of the things that are unusual and don't happen all the time, and yet I'm having to walk through them, and the frustration with that, and I'm just going, Lord, what the heck? Why? Like, this doesn't make sense. This isn't, I'm having trouble seeing your goodness and all of the frustration. And there's still emotions behind that because it's still frustrating. But going through all of that, and last week was just laying it out before the Lord and just saying, hey, I'm really frustrated that all of this has happened. And actually just being real with the Lord, because he loves it when we're real with him. And at the end, he was like holding my shoulders and trying to get me to look at him. And I often will have times where if I'm really frustrated or really stressed or overwhelmed, I'll sit and I'll like lock eyes with the Lord and just let his peace come. And so I could tell that the Lord was trying to do that. And I'm like trying to look at him, and I couldn't keep eye contact. I kept looking over my shoulder, which where I was, it was like looking at Benaiah. And so, and just constantly my thoughts and my attention kept turning towards Benaiah. And the Lord was just like trying to get my attention and get my focus. And I was so frustrated. I was like, Lord, I can't focus on you because I'm so focused on Benaiah. And I saw Jesus like pick up Benaiah and say, I've got him. And then it was like after that moment, and he like literally just walked out of the room with Benaiah, and it was like basically just giving me the ability to just like, okay, I'm here with you, Lord. And like this refocusing of turning my attention to the Lord and letting those things go, because it'll be what it'll be, and that's just how it's gonna go. And I was talking with a friend yesterday, and she was just saying how she had been realizing that she had put this event as an idol in her life, and she was constantly talking about everything's going to be sorted after this event. I just need to get to this event, to this moment, and then everything's going to work out, and all of that will be sorted. And just so focused on this one day and making that happen that it ended up becoming an idol in her life. And I was just realizing that like we will say like, oh, I need to focus on the Lord, or I'm focusing on doing this, but in reality, like your focus is just like a non-Christianese way of saying, what's your idol? Because whatever you're focused on is going to be where you're going to go, and what you're going to think about, and what you're going to work towards or to do. The scripture Philippians 4:13 came to mind, or 3:14. Sorry, mixed up the numbers. I press on toward the goal for the prize of the upward call of God in Christ Jesus. And there's just that aspect of pressing on towards your goal and keeping your focus on your goal and whatever your goal might be, which should be the Lord and towards the call of God. Making sure that your focus is on that. And then the other things come second, because I know that as I love the Lord, I will also love my kids. I will love my husband. And just making sure that my focus really is on the Lord, and it is on like everything that comes with that, but then also being available to my kids, being available to my husband, and making sure that not only is my priority of the Lord taken care of, my priorities with my family are also taken care of. So, just to recap, have compassion for yourself. Compassion. The Lord has so much compassion for you, even more than you could ever imagine, always. I don't even think he needs an I'm sorry from us half the time. I think the moment of us coming to him and just saying, I was wrong, or this didn't work out, I think he just loves the turning to him. Like, even if it isn't even just vocal, of just turning to him, and then trusting that he's gonna work it all out. You're gonna grow. Things are gonna get easier. Things are gonna get better. I now can look back and say, wow, nursing has gotten so much better, because it used to be brutal. But in the moment, I had so many points where I genuinely didn't think it was ever going to get good. Like, I just had zero hope for it at all. And yet it's gotten better, and it will continue to get better. So trust. And then walk in humility. If you're asking for advice, take it. Because obviously whatever you're doing isn't working. So even if you think you know what's better or what's best, just take that advice and walk in humility with the Lord, especially because he does know what's best. And then keep your eyes on Jesus. And that's what I got. Lessons from a new mom.
So good, Grace. I just feel like as you talk, just so much peace just come over me. And I think it's like because you're like imparting that peace that you get when you lock eyes with God like that. And we were talking before, and before we get into your testimony, I wanted to ask you, how did you learn to encounter God in that way?
I don't know, would be the short answer.
Really?
I didn't know that, like, basically until coming to BSM, I didn't know that I had been already encountering the Lord in specific ways.
Really?
Because they were a part of my normal. And so when you've always done something, you don't think it's out of the normal until you talk to somebody and they're like, wait, what, you do that? And so I don't know. I grew up in a Christian home.
Yeah.
So this will kind of segue into my story a little bit.
Okay.
I grew up in a Christian home, and so the Lord has always been a part of my life, and talking to him and interacting with him. And I have like a beautiful imagination. At Bethel, sometimes they talk about your sanctified imagination and how you can encounter the Lord through that, and like have guided encounters or just encounters with the Lord. And so when I was young, I would close my eyes and I would picture myself with the Lord, and we would go on journeys, or the Lord would just encounter me in that way. It's hard to tell what's me and what's him sometimes, but just trusting that, like, if it lines up with the word and it lines up with his character. It was probably the Lord, and just not overthinking it, because overthinking can be brutal. But I would just close my eyes and go places with him. So there was one time where he took me into the depths of the ocean where we can't get, and it was bright, and there were like different colors that I hadn't seen, and just like crazy things like that. And then there was one time where this one's probably one of the most significant ones for me. I saw myself coming to the Lord and like in his throne room, and I was on my knees and I had my head down, and I was like crying, and he walked out to me and he lifted my chin and he's like, you don't put your head down. When you're in my presence, you lift your head because of who you are. And to this day, I still, when I worship, I tend to tilt my chin up, just because there were moments after that where I'd be in worship and I'd have my head down, and the Lord would be like, no, lift your chin, lift your head, and look at me. And so just multiple encounters like that I didn't realize were unusual, but basically I would close my eyes and I literally just picture Jesus or the Lord or whatever in front of me, and I just look at him. I don't know that I have a picture, like an actual picture of a human. It's more of a shadowy figure, not in a negative way, but just like probably semi similar to some of the photos that you'd see, but I don't know. I just close my eyes and imagine it and have those moments with the Lord.
That's so good. Okay, so would you
I
say,
don't know how I learned it. I just did it.
right? Would you say I get that. I was so that weekend when we were graduating, we did a little small group kind of thing at Melissa and Inese's house. This is people who were in school with us. But so it was amazing. I feel like my eyes were reopened to the spirit realm because we were all praying in tongues, and like it was like fire in the room, you know? I was like, what is going on? I was like, God, you're amazing. But I at first, so there was a hallway over here, and then everybody's in the living room. And I saw, I like, it was like I blinked to like close my eyes to pray. And when I opened, I saw something standing in the hallway, and it was like a knight kind of thing holding a sword, and I didn't know what it was, and I was like, okay. So I blinked again and it was gone. I was like, okay, Lord. And I just began to pray and pray and pray, and then I felt the Lord tell me go into the other living room. So there's two living rooms right next to the kitchen, and I just okay. So I go into the kitchen and the Lord hits me and I fall to the ground, and I'm like, whoa, okay. And I'm praying in the spirit, but I'm seeing these beings just standing in a circle around me. And Papa Ray, Ray, he comes over and just starts praying for God to come over, but he also said, surround him with your angels, Lord, to guard him. And it was interesting because I believe that's what God was already doing, and I was seeing that, and now I just had another prayer event. So I just left a church that I've been serving at, and I just stepped as soon as I got home from graduation. But I went to we were having church. It's like a church launch. It's called Local Church. But we were having it at the pastor's house, and it was like they asked me to play guitar and to just sing in the spirit, and I was like, oh, okay, this is weird for me. I haven't done this in forever because I got taken off the stage at my old church, and I was just nervous, but I felt the Lord tell me, no, you need to do this. And I was like, okay, God. So I do that. And right when I began to sing, I saw just a pillar of fire like hit the room. And I was like, whew, this is like day of Pentecost fire right now. I was like freaked out. But it was good because I saw that fire begin to bounce around the room. My friend Jordan, who everybody knows, Jordan is our creative lead for Novus, this thing that I do here. He began to receive his spirit language after we were praying over him. So it was just fantastic. Like, and the amount of peace and kindness and love that was just came over me was incredible. I don't think I've ever I have experienced that, but I don't think I've ever experienced it like in a home environment like that, other than when I was in Reading, you know? So it's just incredible how like we could go into those encounters, which we led. That happened to be us. A sim Dylan, or we had what was her name? Louise led us through an encounter in the spirit, and I saw the Lord. It wasn't like a physical, like you said, but it was. So it was weird. Like he took me by the hand and sat me down. I remember sharing. Did I share this with you? I believe I did. But the Lord, so I asked him like, "What do you want me to do?" And I heard him say, "Rephrase that question." And I said, "Okay." And then he said, "What are we gonna do?" And I said it, and then he said something crazy. And that's just so exciting for me. So I love hearing about those encounters because the Lord, He does speak to us in that way. That how did you say? Bill says it. He says, "Sanctified imagination." Like it's so good.
I don't know if those are just they say it in
Thanks,
the
everyone's.
yeah.
I think I've heard Bill say it, but maybe not. So let me not quote him like that. Okay. So, how do you know? So you're talking about your friend that realized that she made something an idol that she in her life. How do we recognize that? How do you recognize when you've made something an idol?
I think if you watch what you think about,
Mm,
you'll realize what your focus is on because your subconscious and your thoughts are going to go towards whatever you're looking at and go towards whatever you focus on. This is like super random, but I would like when I would play like Candy Crush.
yeah.
I would close my eyes to go to sleep at night, and that's what I would see in
Well,
my mind's eye was like Candy Crush, and I was like, I might be a little addicted to this right now, and knew that it was like, okay, if like at that point, it was just there was so much of my thought process that was going towards wanting to do that and towards doing that. Like that's a very simple thing. I don't know that I made Candy Crush an idol,
yeah.
but a lot of my focus and attention was naturally drifting towards that. And I think that's the same with the Lord, where um, whatever your attention, your focus is naturally drifting towards, it's going to show you what what's your priorities and what's your idols in your life. So
Super good. So now we've answered those questions. I'd love to get into your testimony of how you met the Lord. You said you grew up in the church, so I just yeah.
yeah, so I grew up in the church. I have a big family. I'm the second youngest of seven, so there's a lot of us around, and I feel so blessed to like. I don't think there was a time where I didn't know how to hear the Lord's voice. It's just kind of always been a part of my life. My mom did hearing God workshops, and so I would be praying and prophesying over people since I was like 12. So it's just kind of been normal for me. Um, and I've always had a very, very intense conscience, I guess you could say. Maybe conviction would be a better word. Um, where like I was little and I stole candy from my siblings, and I felt so bad about it that I went to my mom and told her, and like on myself, um, and was like bawling my eyes out as I'm like, I took candy from my siblings. And so that's just kind of been my life of just knowing that I am set apart for the Lord. I went through a phase where I, like most teenagers, where you just want to fit in with the crowd, and so just had like some more rough times. Had some like struggled with some emotional stuff and tried to be a part of the emo crowd, but at the same time had the joy of the Lord. Not sure how I thought that would work. Um, didn't last very long. uh, and I think I went to a summer camp, and there was a point where they were asking for people to rededicate their lives or to dedicate their lives to the Lord. And I decided to do that. And I think that was probably the first time that I chose it for myself. Like, beyond just, I know that the Lord exists, I know He loves me, I talk to Him all the time. Beyond that, it was, I'm choosing to follow Him. And since then, like, that was like a really huge turning point for me where I started to embrace the joy that I actually had and not just trying to be a part of a crowd, and stepping out and knowing even if I don't have a friend that's going to this breakout session, I'm going to go to it because I want to go to it, and just embracing myself and embracing the Lord. And that was when I was like 15. I have definitely always had a close relationship with the Lord, but like that was probably my official turning point. I did so many things. Um, I ended up going on a mission trip to Swaziland, Africa when I was 16, and I loved it. I love Africa. I want to go back again. And I ended up, when I was 18, going and doing a YWAM DTS, a discipleship training school. And I did that in Cape Town, South Africa. And then my outreach was in Thailand. So I literally lived in Thailand for 2.5 months doing mission stuff, which is amazing. And when I think about it now, I'm like, holy crap, I lived in Thailand for 2.5 months. That's actually insane as an 18-year-old. That's craziness. And I flew to Africa alone as an 18-year-old. Also craziness. But I did it and it was amazing and I had so much fun and we had so many crazy things happen. Just from like when we were in Thailand, we had a Buddhist school that was at a temple invite us to come teach English there, knowing that we were believers. And so like just wild connections that happened where we were just invited places that in all logicness, like logic, we shouldn't have been there or we shouldn't have been welcomed in, but we were. It was super fun. We ended up going to university and meeting these women who were studying English, and so we were helping them with their English homework and their grammar and stuff, and they ended up being able to come to church and stuff, and I'm still Facebook friends with some of them. I'd love to see them again. Who knows if it'll ever happen, but and then like when I was in South Africa at one point, like the protection of the Lord is crazy. I was traveling with another girl. I was going to Swaziland again because I still had friends that were missionaries there, so I decided to go there for a week or two after I finished my discipleship training school because I was like, I'm so close, I might as well go. It's literally a country over. And so we went from Cape Town to Johannesburg on a bus, and we took a Greyhound type bus, and we had all of our stuff. She was moving to Swaziland, so we had all of her life on that bus. And so we stop in the middle of the night, and it's a night one. We stop in the middle of the night at a gas station, and they say, okay, you have 20 minutes. And so we're like, okay, great. We go to the bathroom, we kind of linger a little bit. We come out, and the bus is gone. And we're like, what the heck? Neither of us have a phone. We don't have anything. We left our stuff on there. I had my passport, but she left her passport on there. I had left my iPod in the pocket of the seat in front of me, like visible, and it was just craziness. And we had like our stuff on the bus, and so then there was another bus from the same company, and we explained to him like, hey, this is what happened. Can we use your phone? We ended up calling. They decided that we would go on the bus that we were at because they were just 2 hours behind the other one. And so then the other one stopped at the next stop to wait for us. And so we get back on the bus, and legit, there's this one lady who had asked us for a cigarette and we didn't have any. And she just looks at us and smirks as if she thought it was so funny that we had missed the bus. But we got on and all of our stuff was still there. There was nothing taken. The lady who had been sitting next to me just kind of smiled at me and looked at me, and I'm like, you knew I wasn't here. Like, what? It was just crazy though. But we ended up making it out of the bus. Nothing was taken. We were totally fine, totally protected. But we were in the middle of South Africa at a gas station, stuck, and we ended up making it, which was just wild. But yeah, so it's been a fun journey with the Lord. I ended up coming and doing BSSM, and that's why I'm in Reading. After doing a discipleship training school, I wanted to do something that would incorporate that biblical study, because I'm just fascinated by it. And I had come to visit a friend who was doing first year of BSSM, and ended up finding out that they go through a textbook called Grasping God's Word, and they learn to study the Bible. And I was like, that's what I want to do, and came back home and really wanted to come. And I waited to see if the desire would fade. It didn't. I applied. I had an interview, and I legitimately told the guy, and I was like, hey, I don't know if I want to be there. I do, but I don't. I could go either way. I'm in a place where I could either plant myself here or I could move there. Either's fine with me, whatever the Lord wants. And he's like, okay, that's a little strange, but okay. And at the end, I asked him when I would find out if I was accepted or not. He's like, usually within like 3 to 4 weeks. I talked to friends, and they were like, yeah, we found out in like 2 weeks. And 2 days after I interviewed, I was talking with the Lord, and I said, okay, if I get accepted, I'll go. And within an hour of that conversation with the Lord, I got my acceptance notice. Within hours of that, I talked to my friend, and she was like, hey, do you want to live with us when you're out here? So I had housing figured out. And it's pretty much just pack up and move and buy a bed when you get there. And then on top of that, a month before I got there, my roommate was like, hey, I have an extra twin mattress that if you want to use the bed for the year, you can use it. And so I had everything figured out, and it was literally just stick your stuff in a car and drive across country, and that's it. And so it was very clear, boom, 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 of like, okay, you are confirming this is where I'm supposed to be, and here I am. So that's a little bit of my story.
That is incredible. I remember when I first applied for BSSM online, I kind of had the same feeling. I waited for the desire to go away. It did not. And my mom said, Tristan, you need to focus on other things, going to college. And I was like, okay, Mom, well, I'm gonna apply here. She didn't think I was gonna get accepted, and my dad goes watching, and then I got accepted. The Lord as soon as I landed in Tennessee, I got accepted to BSSM, had a job immediately, and then it was just like everything just started to line up. My parents got a house that was just incredible. It was God's so good. Well, Grace, it was such an honor. I know you gotta get going. Do you mind praying for everybody?
Sure. Jesus, thanks for being good and being faithful, even when we can't see it. I ask that you would just overwhelm everyone with peace and your compassion, and us to keep our eyes on you and keep our eyes locked on you, but also to learn what it looks like to keep our eyes on you, but also to honor our priorities in life.